6 o'clock, so let's start the formal work session then for Monday, May 13th. The goal of this work session is to have the town board receive information on topics of town business. And tonight, our first item on the agenda is going to be the new Liberty Road roundabout update. Who's going to be Dennis or?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Mayor and Town Board, so we want to talk to you tonight about where we are with the two roundabouts on New Liberty Road. Of course, one is at 7th Street and one is at County Road 13. So basically, when we started talking about this in February, the cost budget that was given to us at that time was about $650,000 per roundabout. And then you probably recall that in April, the town board approved an IGA with Poudre Tech Metro District and Raindance Metro District for construction of new roundabouts. But in the interim, as the design of the roundabouts were refined and brought to final, of course, so were the cost estimates. And as typical, they went up. That's in the memorandum. So right now, the cost budget for the 7th and New Liberty Road is $802,500, and County Road 13 is $818,900. So, you know, basically, as you get into the design and the engineer puts more detail into the drawings, of course, things come up. One of the big things that wasn't in the original cost estimate was storm drainage pipes. I mean, it's very cursory. The sketch that the contractor was going off of was very preliminary. I mean, there's County Road 13. I mean, now the design, of course, includes several drawings with all kinds of details and things like that. So something we did, though, to try to keep the cost down or bring them down a little bit was we met with the contractor and the design team here recently, and we started talking about the detours, or shoe flies we call them, to go around to get traffic around the roundabout work as they're working on it. We would prefer asphalt, because of course it stands up better to the traffic, and it's going to be there for about 60 days. And the original cost budget was only gravel, road base. We talked about something in between, and that is recycled asphalt, in other words, asphalt millings. They tend to stick together better, they won't move around as much, there won't be near as much maintenance to try to keep it functional for the traffic. And the contractor said, and also what we can do is use the asphalt, grind up the asphalt that's in those intersections now, has to come out anyway, and then use it for the shoe flies. So we're using an on-site material instead of buying and importing material, so we cut the costs quite a bit there. So.
Well, and I think just to add to that, when we met with them, you know, we really went through as a team and went kind of line by line and item by item. And I think that these represent, you know, 200,000 less than what we were at a few days ago. So they have dropped down quite significantly. Not as much as we hoped, but you know, I would remind the board the last roundabout we built as a town was still $1.1 million. So even though these are increasing, it's still less than what we recently paid a few years later. So you know, I still believe that when you compare these to a signalized intersection and you see you know, you never have like a left turn crash, you don't really have rear endings, you know, they're just so much safer over time. You'll remember that our consultant for our transportation master plan last week mentioned how he even took a part of the roundabout and counted it for pedestrian traffic, so they do facilitate pedestrians a lot better than traffic signals. So it is frustrating. I was honestly hoping that we would go from that 650 down to about 600 and build them for even less, but that's just not the way that the world worked.
So, for you tonight, obviously, we're still not locked into this, we have the IGA, but it's still, the town has the option to say, that's too expensive, we're gonna go back to the traffic signal. So, that's the conversation with the board, is how you wanna handle it.
So where are we going, what are we talking about money-wise if we do the recycled asphalt?
Well, no,
What are
that's
we
these
saying?
numbers.
That's
Huh?
it.
That's the numbers we've got in the packet,
Oh.
so, that's the 802 and 818.
So it was even higher than that.
25% increase over what the quote is.
Are these fixed prices, or are we just waiting for another surprise as they start the project, or?
Well, you know,
Like, do you guys call it cost build or whatever, like with our new public works add-on, didn't we say, okay, this is the budget you have to work with?
We haven't accepted this price, I think that this price now is what their estimate is, their bid. But, yeah, with Public Works, we got to a point where we locked down and we said, this is your maximum price, and so we haven't gotten there yet, because this price is higher than what we represented to the board.
Yeah, I really like roundabouts, that's my preference, but
Yeah.
now we're up to 1.6 million. And I don't know, I kind of feel like this should go through the budget process. What are we giving up in our capital improvement, or our roadway fund to do this? Like, we're so out of context now, it just doesn't,
I agree. What's,
Weird.
so what's the price, along his lines of what he's chatting about, what's the price differential now between if we went with traffic light versus
The
these?
traffic signals were 700,000 total?
350
About
for each.
350 each.
So we'd save a lot of money if we went back to just traffic signals.
I mean, yeah, because the lure was that the developer could do it cheaper, all this stuff, and
Right.
all of a sudden we're,
Still cheaper, just not as cheap as we'd hoped, I guess.
Well, maybe.
I mean, cheaper than a roundabout, obviously.
Yeah, but we're
cheaper than a
talking
traffic signal.
700 versus we're up to.
Well, the variance that we had
Six
kind of tentatively
million.
already approved would
That's a lot
basically be
more
what
money.
one roundabout would be
That's
now.
almost $1 million.
Yeah.
so I like the roundabouts, but I feel like at that price,
I agree.
you know, we should look at our capital improvement plan and see what,
And bid it out,
and
bid it out ourselves.
maybe we triple bid it, I don't know.
Yeah.
And you don't think putting out an RFP, we could do any better than this?
well, from our history of bidding roundabouts, and the last one we did was 7 at East Park Drive, it was 1.1 million. So, I don't have any reason to believe that if we bid it out, it's gonna be less than 800,000.
I was looking at some of the gave you the summary sheet and then the detail behind each of the bids. Just looking at the 7th and New Liberty, and the general conditions, kind of the big jumps.
What
Two of
page
the
are you on? Just so-
Surveying went from 15,000 to 36,000.
What page are you looking at, David?
Oh,
Just up in the bottom right-hand corner, like 12 of what?
60 to 37?
Okay.
Six, okay.
A second. There's so many pages, it's hard
Yeah.
to follow.
So it's, I mean, surveying went from 15,000 to 36,2. Holy cow, that's like hiring another guy or something, that's a whole, it doubled. So what happened, did they initially, anyway, it seems like such an amazing thing for something that isn't material related. The original quote was in March, this was in May, 3 months later, the cost of surveying doubled. The same thing with street signs and striping. Striping was 28.5 and now it's 45. Well, geez, price of paint went up. I mean,
Some warrants.
Gotcha.
either
Thank you.
the first one was complete wag and they just pulled numbers out of the air. Or I can't even see how you'd defend
Yeah.
that kind of an increase on those items. If you have a different design, if you've got more infrastructure work, more materials, I get that. But a surveyor probably charges by the hour the same thing they charged in March.
I hate to see us give up on roundabouts, so.
I agree.
Yeah.
I think it's
Yeah.
the wave of the future, and I'd much rather go into a roundabout than sit there. and try.
It's consistent with the area too, you know, what we've done at Crossroads and
Right.
7th and.
Although coincidentally, I've had many folks who, since they found out about this, have told me they are not happy. They do not want a roundabout there. So I mean, I've had as many folks who've told me they don't want it, like it, as many as who probably do like it, but more who don't.
And Dr. Zinn, I'm not suggesting we give up on the roundabout, I prefer that. I just feel like this budget amount
Yeah.
should be looked at in the context of our entire roadway improvement plan.
Yeah.
Do we have traffic, estimate of projected traffic counts at these two locations? And what I'm thinking is if, say, for example, we anticipate a great deal more traffic at 7th versus 13, I'm just thinking out loud, maybe around about one place, traffic light at another, depending on traffic.
Instead of both.
And we have those estimates from FHU, right?
Right, well, you know, was it over a year ago, we had a signal warrant study done.
Right,
Both intersections met 2 warrants, and they thought that within a few months,
Yeah.
they would meet a third.
so it's gonna be pretty much
So
equal.
we have traffic counts, traffic numbers, all that
It's
stuff.
gonna be pretty much equal,
They're both very busy intersections.
yeah.
And as rain dance build out, it's gonna get a heck of a lot.
If I was to vote, I mean, I'm not vote, but I mean, if I was to give my opinion, I think that maybe we only do one this year and do the other one next year.
I was kind of thinking that, but
And I would vote for doing 13 at New Liberty first, because there's been some very serious potential accidents there.
13.
13 at New Liberty.
13. What was I wondering? I was just wondering, the price went up radically.
Yeah.
That's really surprising. I don't know if there's any, did they give us any reason why? So this went up, other than the sewer, the stormwater line?
And the new surveyor that had a bonus.
Yeah, is there anything that we're missing that, is this why?
It's just impossible to put your finger on just a few
Why?
things. It's just,
Okay, because one of the advantages was we were sharing the cost for some of the equipment and the engineering was already out there. That's why it's less than 1.2. Wasn't that part of the, actually, no, okay, I'm sorry.
Well, part of the cost savings though was
Yeah.
gonna be doing them both at the same time. And now if we don't do that, I think we need to
Okay,
kind of,
then
I think
back
though,
to- Okay,
instead of just plunking ahead, I agree with Miles. I think we maybe need to take a step back and we need to relook at this thing. And what else do we have coming into the, you know, what has to be taken care of in
What's our
2020
priorities?
or 2021?
Mhm.
And does this still fit in the picture, or do we need to cut this back to stoplights because we need $900,000 for
Some of the-
whatever the next big ask is, or the next big need in our current system is?
Yeah, it's kind of disappointing, because like I said, I do
Yeah.
want,
Right.
I would prefer to see roundabouts out there.
Absolutely,
Yeah, I agree.
it's very
Yeah,
disappointing.
we've had some, positive financial news as far as, like, the oil and gas revenue is much higher than expected, and other
Sales
revenues,
tax,
sales tax is higher than
construction
expected.
use fees.
But,
So, yeah.
I'm not saying we just go do it because of that, but I think, look at what do we have planned, where are we at this year versus the last time we talked about it, with the added revenue that we picked up versus other projects, because that'd be my big, I'd be concerned if we just dumped the project right now, I don't wanna do that, but I also agree that, just taking a close, 6 months, 8 months after we went through this last, sitting back and taking a closer look financially, kind of where we're at.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we need to too, because, and one of the things that this board has always done though too is we have never looked at utilizing and knowing that the oil and gas, we've only looked at that from year to year, which is why we've never put that into our budget ever, because we know that's something that you can never count on or rely on or depend on.
It's always capital
Yeah,
projects.
it goes to
Exactly,
capital,
exactly
yeah.
right, so.
Okay.
I'm curious, Shane, you wouldn't know, Dennis, maybe you were a part of the conversation, because it feels like when Rain Dance was being platted and you were looking at New Liberty going through, talking about a traffic impact, I mean, it wouldn't have been too hard to predict, oh yikes, these two intersections, Was there a conversation at the time about doing something to improve those intersections, traffic?
in our mind, we figured those 2 intersections would need a traffic signal someday. And, when, as we saw the traffic increase, and then we started getting calls and complaints about it's getting very hard to get, make your turns safely. That's when we did the traffic signal warrant study.
Yeah,
And, like I said, the signals were warranted, so, yeah, 2 major roads like that, you can just plan on needing some kind of control device other than a stop sign.
We're
Did
also
we
gonna have
collect
the fire
the-
station in there now. In that area, I mean.
Yeah, right.
did we collect an impact fee at the time?
Well, I was gonna say, is there any road impact fee coming out of, is that where this money's coming from?
It is.
It is.
And they don't have, is that the money in there right now to support?
There is.
Yeah.
I
All
think I
those
shared
houses are
that,
paying, right?
That with the board, with the memo, and I'm not gonna make up a number from memory, but I can pull that up, but it was substantial. I think that our road impact fund, had enough to cover this for certain. But I could pull that number up, but I hear basically you just wanted more context. Let's look at maybe the 5-year road improvement plan
Exactly.
and projected revenues and
Right.
just make sure we're, is this thing inches forward, we don't get
Mhm.
Out of our ability to pay.
Well, I mean, I assume you guys are probably starting to put together that capital improvement plan, because August is usually when we meet on it.
right.
Scary to think it's, what, 3 months
No,
away?
staff is talking budget right now.
Okay.
Yep.
And maybe this rises to the top, and it is the top priority for next year. Like,
My only thought, I mean, when this first came up, I mean, the thought was 2 stoplights at 700,000, which would basically be, you know, you at the time thought that one roundabout was gonna be 600-ish, you know, et cetera, that at least we could get one roundabout done for 2 traffic lights. My proposal was to do one roundabout this year. They can still look at what the numbers are, et cetera, and finalize that. But to maybe one of the roundabouts pushes to next year, and we, you know, refigure it in our budget for this fall, and then it gets done next year. I'm throwing it out as an
Right,
idea, because
right.
we already budgeted 700,
Thinking that
and
was-
we're at 800-ish right now to do one roundabout and get it done. I'm just saying, I think.
But until we go back, and to Miles's point though, I think, and look at what we all, you know, where we're gonna go with the money and what's to be spent, I don't know that I would be comfortable supporting that until we have more information as to what lies ahead.
It's just one that when you guys pull the numbers, I guess that's one thing to consider. If we felt that we couldn't pay for it all right now, we could consider that, but
Right, well, I think it's gonna be
Hopefully
in the
we can do
context of
both
the 5-year
this year,
plan,
yeah.
because we have reserves right now, so I think it's gonna be more just in that 5-year plan. If we can do,
Right.
if we can do them, and we think we can do one in 19 and one in 20, I think we can do them both in 19. But I think the larger conversation is, but can we do them both? Because
Well, but then
basically-
you better go back to this person who you got the quote from, to say how much more is it gonna go up, not doing them
Right.
together, because there
Right.
is gonna be a
Right.
cost increase.
Sure there would be.
Yeah.
Well, and
So then
I
it's gonna
just
be
think-
even more.
Right, and I
Price
think
of
if we did
materials
them
will
again
change.
in
So
12
it doesn't make
months,
sense.
their number can be whatever it's gonna be in 12 months.
I mean, we wanna pull as many cost efficiencies as we can.
Mhm.
So I think, I think, you know, we either do them together probably,
Right.
or figure out a delay or something else, but I don't see doing one now and then waiting if it's gonna end up costing us another, even if it's only another $200,000, that puts us over $1 million and that we are over.
We're back to 1.2, 1.1, where we normally spend on it.
Yeah.
Also, we don't know what other priorities are gonna be here in 6 months. The CDOT study is still going forward, on
What I was-
392 and 257.
And I can tell you, they have told us
So-
the next step for that is
Yeah.
going to be a Pell study.
Right.
And those can cost $1 million, I mean, the
Right.
one that we did on 34 was in the millions of dollars. And they have no money right now.
Which
for
may or
that
may not
study.
be a priority too, as well.
MPO
Decide,
versus-
is this a
yeah.
higher priority, or where are our priorities? We talked basically talking $900,000 difference here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is not a little difference.
That's the only other question, the only other question about
Wait till the
the
federal government.
roundabout I had is at 7th and Eastman Park. It was pretty dusty. Was that mill, what kind of surface was the detour road? Was it paved? Granted, it wasn't that much, you didn't have to go very far. I just remember it being dusty.
So anyway, Shane, you kind of know what we want to see, and you'll bring that back, I would guess, as soon as you can, so we can not try to delay this too long if we would choose to move forward. Because when was this scheduled to?
Well, yeah, we've gotta get them a decision pretty quick,
Yeah.
that we're trying to get going, so, would the board be okay starting next week's meeting at 5? Is that
Yes.
too early for anybody? Because I'm just thinking with that and all the other discussions we have,
Let me get some things.
I just don't, think we wanna look at each other at midnight for starting, so,
I think that's fine.
okay, so we'll just do
Everybody-
that.
I think so.
And so I'll see if I can, with staff, get something prepared for next Monday, if not, it would be 2 weeks from now, but I'll try to put it on next Monday and just.
Okay.
That's-
Okay.
you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dennis.
Thanks, Dennis. Well, thanks, I
Well,
guess.
yeah,
Thanks for the great news. Okay.
Next,
Moving on, item
Next
2,
business.
Parks, Recreation, and Culture Strategic Plan. Are you
Thank
gonna
you.
kick
Yes,
us off,
Thank
Ed?
you, Mayor and Board. Tonight, we are here to publicly kick off our strategic plan for our department. As you know, that was in this year's budget. A little bit of background, we haven't had a needs assessment since 2011 when we were 15,000 people. So that's part of it, as well as, you know, we're a growing community. We're 31,000 people targeting into the 60s. So we need to have some strategy around how do we get there, how do we pay for it all, how do we maintain it, those kind of things. So we're looking at what we do good, where we can improve, and what's the future as we continue to grow as a community. So we did an RFP out there, and before you tonight, we'd like to introduce Neely Bott. He's on the left. He is the Vice President of Pros Consulting out of Indianapolis. I will tell you that Neely comes with a really good resume. He is well known throughout the world and in our country for Parks and Recreation master plans and strategic plans. They are one of the top firms in the country, and super excited to have this firm on. And then Phil Parnan on your right, he is a senior project manager. He is kind of Neely's right-hand man on this project, and we're looking forward to what they can tell us over the next 3-4 months as we really dive in. So they're gonna kick it off tonight. I want you to know that we've been working with them behind the scenes for about 45 days, giving them lots of information, what we do, all of our data, that kind of stuff. Today we kicked off focus groups, as well as meeting with all of our full-time staff to look at our organization internally and externally. And then, as you know, all of you are scheduled for individual meetings with them tomorrow, as well as finishing up some of the focus groups and staff meetings tomorrow. And then tomorrow night from 5:30 to 7 at the Rec Center will be a public meeting, our first one, and then Neely will explain what we're going to do from there. But with that, I will turn it over to Neely.
Brilliant. Thank you again. Good evening. I appreciate the opportunity, and as Eric said, we're based in Indianapolis, but we do this all over the country and around the world as well. Pros has been around for 25 years. I've probably done 150 of these plans, but this is all we do. So it's strategic, master, business planning. Prior to this, I worked for Disney and realized Pixie Dust doesn't pay the bills. So I had to get a real job, and along the way, worked for the Olympics, worked for the Super Bowl as well, and the Patriots lost, so I'm super happy about that. Yes, that was a great one.
He's hiring.
And the year the Colts didn't win, because we always love Peyton, I'm glad the Broncos won too, so hey, you got that.
Now you're gone.
But anyway, so we're at the start of this process, really, this is where we're here to begin with, right? Think about this for a moment. 10 years ago, how many of you had an iPad or a smartphone? Maybe a smartphone, this is the beginning, right? The BlackBerries, the early on.
The one that came with a bag.
Yes,
That wasn't
they were like dumbbells, you can work out with them too. But you look around the room now and clearly you see the difference.
Right.
And that's really why we're here to do this plan, right? The rate of growth, as Eric said, that Windsor is experiencing as a worst case scenario is 3 times the national average. As a best case, 4 to 5 times. So the rate of growth that you have hasn't even exceeded any of the previous plans. And so what we want to look at with the strategic plan is really creating a framework and a roadmap, right? We don't know what the future is going to be, except we know it's going to be different. And our goal is to ensure we can help plan for a fiscally sustainable future for the existing and the growing community. So this is a very high-level summary of the process, which will take about 9 to 10 months at the very most. Right now, where we are is getting a sense of where are we today. We're meeting with you all and the community to get a sense of where do you want us to go. And at the end of it, we come back with the staff, with our experience to help frame for you, how will we get there, right? So over the next 4 to 5 months, really it's the discovery and the needs assessment process, which is what we're gonna do, starting with staff, the internal customers, key leaders, and the external stakeholders as well. And with every piece as we go forward, what we're trying to do is, one, understand from you all, but at the same time also educate a lot of people meeting us as to what this looks like. Because as people come in, everybody wants everything. And what we're trying to balance is One, it's easy to build, but as you all know, down the line, it's not gonna be as easy to operate and maintain or replace. So how do we balance for that? And two, there has to be some prioritization, and that's where, unlike just the loudest voices, what this plan, especially with the statistically valid component, will help do is ensure that you get to hear from the true in the entire community and not just the few people that may show up. Right? So that's where we're starting this process as well, where we have the very first piece is a multilingual, mobile-friendly crowdsourcing website we built for the project. Staff came up with this branding, and I love the term. It says recreationliveshere.com. Right? That's where we're going to have all the project information, all future meeting dates, every technical report. So we want you all and we want the community to see the plan develop in real time in full transparency. Every meeting we finish, the updates or the results from there will be uploaded as well. And if someone doesn't make a meeting, if you were to go to the website and scroll down, you will see open comment boxes. So people have an opportunity to provide feedback in one of 82 languages on their smartphones 24/7, 365. Because what we've always encountered is there's two people in every community that are going to show up at the very last meeting in front of you and tell you that they won't ask their input, which means your whole plan is flawed. And now, after 10 months of this being there, if people chose not to engage, then shame on them, they really chose not to engage. Because we're trying to go where people are and give every person in Windsor a chance to be part of this process. That's really what we want to do. So, this is there, this exists, this will run throughout the process as well. As we go through the planning process, what I want to do is actually go through a demographics and trends projection, but with a little activity. Do you all have the clickers in front of you? I know you did the live polling last week as well from your
I was
smartphones,
gonna vote twice.
so it's similar to that. Does everyone have a
Everybody have
clicker?
one, vote for me.
David, do you have one? Right, here you go.
Ken will vote
I was trying to get more, I was gonna vote for him.
David, they even have a question button.
Who needs a clicker?
Got the question mark.
Do you all have a clicker?
Yes.
Okay,
It's like
wonderful.
Jeopardy, we're gonna be quick, right?
So the first question
You must vote for
is just to get you acclimated with this, and it's almost like a fastest finger first, but I want you to take a look at this and choose the right option as quickly as you can. Got 9 responses, I'm closing it. Look at that! Voila, well done you all. That was quick, that was good. So now that you got the hang of it, I actually want to run through the demographics and take a look. Before I do that, I do want to say that this year is the most inaccurate projection of demographic data we will ever have. Right? We're the furthest away from the census, and in any community it's inaccurate, but one that's fluent like you have, absolutely inaccurate. So what we can do is look at the rate of projection from the previous years and be able to extrapolate that further out, which is what we've done. But what your current numbers show, you're already way past the 2018 numbers here. So we're looking at 31,000 plus. More importantly, it's the rate of growth that we're looking at, right? Like I said, worst case 5.5%, or best case 5.5%, worst case 3%. Nationally, it's between 0.9 to 1%. Right? So again, the population number is smaller, so clearly percentage numbers seem higher. But you know this as well, you were 15,000 a few years ago, we're 30 plus and poised to go to 60. So that's driving a lot of where we look at with this plan with level of service, but also ensuring equity in terms of distribution throughout the town to ensure that. So let's look at the next one, and this is an exercise for a clicker for you all. Choose one, A, B, C, D, or E. Which one do you think currently is the largest age segment in Windsor?
It was probably in my packet, right?
It was, but I don't remember.
Actually, it wasn't. I hit these slides. I didn't do this in your packet.
We couldn't get
You,
on.
you have the final numbers, you didn't have the quiz numbers, so yes, you can look ahead, true. All right, is everybody done? I have all the responses. The right answer, most of you chose 35 to 54. Well done. Either you read the packets really well, but you know, the key here is looking at how this is changing. Yes, it's the largest one now, but if you look down to 2023, we are aging to a great degree, and I refuse to call them seniors because they don't behave like it, but the 55 plus population will be the single largest group. Right? 1 out of 3 people here in the next literally 12, 13 years will be over the age of 55. So that has a lot of implications in terms of access, ADA accessibility, the kinds of programming we offer, etc. too, to the extent where this entire generation has become so much more active, and people move here because they love the outdoors, that we're looking at almost different types of programming for ages 55 to 74 and 75 plus. Versus earlier, 55 or 60 plus was all seniors and older adults. It's really not the case here. Not as, yes, yes,
Can you go back?
of course.
I'm just curious, what assumptions are you using to do these projections? So is this the national average? These are the age groups that'll expand? This must assume there's more people moving to Windsor who are older?
Yeah,
And the current
no,
population stays and gets older, or?
you're asking a great question, and you're actually giving far more detail than we're able to. A lot of this is from 2023. ESRI is the service we use, Environmental Services Research Institute, that does the census tract projection. After 2023, all it is straight line regression. So the rate of growth we saw in the previous 5 years, if we extrapolate that out, that's how it would be. But yes, if I were in a position to do it, I would do exactly what you're saying, because you're right on. Right? A lot more factors come into play, building permits, ages, life expectancies, a lot of different things that we can look at. So, great question though.
Oh,
So, yeah. Does that answer your question?
it does?
Okay, right.
Or-
So not as, from an ethnic or race standpoint, not as diverse and marginally diversifying as well, not a whole lot. But let's look at the income levels. The median, which is the 50% point, what do you think is the median household income in Windsor? Kept them close, they can be tricky. All right, let's take a look.
Oh, just wrong, yeah.
Okay, still 2/3 if you got it right.
That's right, it was
It is 88,000. So half the population makes over $88,000 per household per year, which is significantly more than, as you know, than state or national averages. In fact, our per capita income is almost 50% more than the national per capita income here. As you know, it comes with a higher expectation of quality. What's good enough in most places is clearly not good enough in Windsor, right? And people have the willingness and ability to pay for that too. We've got 5,000 or 6,000 members and growing, right? And heavily used community rec center. Great parks, and we toured this morning, and it was amazing, right? It looked just great. But therein lies the responsibility for you all too, because how do you maintain this level of service 10 and 15 years down the line as the demands grow, but also as the pressures grow on these places you have, because they are in some ways being loved to death, right? So managing that is also going to be an important piece for us going forward. So, just a couple of quick trend data. This is also looking at a source through what used to be Sporting Goods Manufacturers Association, SGMA, which is now changed to SFIA, Sports and Fitness Industry Association. So it's primarily a retail-based organization that they look at spending on equipment for a certain activity and estimate that the more you spend, the more likely people are to participate, adjusting for cost of living differences and all of that, right? So this is where we look at just a participation level to begin with first. And by and large, rugby, boxing, 2016 was the first year rugby was introduced in the Summer Olympics, Rugby 7. Since then, it shot up. 5 years ago, I had never heard of pickleball. I heard it in Carlsbad, California for the first time. As you can see in the 1 year number, it's one of the 5 fastest growing sports in the country. Right? So we don't know what's going to continue growing, but we do know some of these things will be. And so these are some of the things we want to be able to plan as we make recommendations to you. Sometimes people don't know what they don't know. So a lot of people who've been here might not even know to ask for some of these. That's where the outside perspective that we bring in will help. Similarly, looking at other activities as well, from a fitness standpoint, aerobics, trail running is among the most heavily participated activity here. I mean, clearly, people love it here as well. So that's an area. Connectivity will become an important trend, right? All within town and then connecting outside within the county. Yes.
Is trail running considered like dirt or paved or just?
Either
trail?
or.
Okay.
Either or. Yes. Yeah.
Oh, I took that to mean like the mountain, real severe mountain trail running that these crazy guys with mountaineering.
In this case, they asked me, how often or how frequently do you run on trails, or how many of you do? So a lot of it,
A mother.
it could be the trail right behind your
Yeah.
house, right? That still counts for them as a trail as well.
It's just getting off the sidewalk and kind of the urban street setting, David, so if you're just basically on something where you don't have any cars or traffic going by,
Yeah.
you're trail.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And then, outdoor recreation trends too, that continues to grow for the most part. But a couple of things, as you see, hiking and overnight backpacking are among the top 30% increase plus year over 5 years, right? So again, more and more people loving the outdoors, continuing to use that more frequently as well, which speaks great to what we have here, because this is why people want to call this home, right? So, a couple other things. This is specific to Windsor. So all of that was national, but this is what's called Market Participation Index. So 100, which is the blue line that you see, is the national average. Anything over that indicates to what percentage do people from Windsor participate in that activity. Doesn't have to be with Parks, Recreation and Culture, doesn't even have to be in Windsor. It just means people from this town choose to participate in this activity to a certain degree, higher or lower than national average.
How did you get those figures?
Great question. So SFIA does an annual survey with retail associations and providers every year. So this number is actually updated in July for last year for every single year. So this is about a year old at this point, but it's as close, and they do it for every town or zip code, and they update this annually. So you'll see for sports, golf, we've got 3 courses, 4th coming on the way, and they're all incredibly popular, right? As is tennis too. So people, again, love the sports. Even more so, you all love fitness. Every single metric is above national averages, anywhere from 5 to 45%, right? And very similar things, right? Yoga, weightlifting, jogging, Pilates, fitness, swimming, walking for exercise. Every activity is significantly higher than national averages here as well. And then same for outdoor activity. Again, it's not saltwater fishing right here, but it's people from Windsor that may go other places too. So as you can see from what we saw earlier, whether it's biking on the road or mountain biking or hiking, etc., people love to get outside, and I can imagine just them wanting more and more opportunities here that they can continue to partake in, because this is where they're spending their money. As we start thinking economic impact, as we start thinking people's disposable income and time, these are the kinds of trends that help us think in terms of what kind of recommendations to be able to make to you all as well.
Eric, I don't see a Whibbit on there.
It's
We
coming.
haven't got to that screen.
It's coming.
It was, if the graph kept going,
Keep
it was gonna be
Oh,
way,
Whibbit's coming.
Keep that clicker in your hand.
Yes.
When you combine, walking and swimming, you get a whippet. So
Can we cross-compare these activities? Is 138 lower than the yoga? I mean, can we look at these across
Yeah.
slides?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Because the
They're not
baseline.
self-contained for that?
No, the baseline is 100 for everything, and the participation is not mutually exclusive.
Okay.
Right, so I could be in yoga and be hiking as well, and playing golf too, right? But essentially, the baseline is really the important piece. Is anything over 100, the higher it is over 100, the more likely or the higher your participation is here for people from Windsor. So in general, as we look at this, if I were summarizing our demographics and trends, fast growing, mildly aging, but aging certainly over time, higher than average disposable income levels. For the most part, every single metric, higher participation trends in sports, in fitness, and in outdoor adventure. Right? So that in a nutshell is our community now and the way we're going forward. So with the growing population, more and more demands, and I think that's where we love your input and the strategic plan comes into play. So we have a few
I have a
questions.
question.
Of course.
But how long are you anticipating the level of growth that we're at now? Because obviously, it's not gonna be probably for ever.
Sure.
Or, so, I mean, there is gonna be a cutoff time and place.
No doubt.
Or a decline.
Yes.
And so how do you prepare for that in these
You know,
numbers?
firstly, for the how long, I don't know. Largely, 10 to 15 years is how far out we project for any plan, which is how far we've gone here. already if you can see from this, we can see we're increasing at a decreasing rate, right? So we've gone from a 5% over time to 2 to 2.5%. So at some point, you're going to get to a place where we're getting to, if not build out, at least diminishing returns or a large cap. But at this point, till the 2020 census comes out, I am hesitant to say how much further I can go.
Okay.
So I'd say 55 to 60,000 over 15 years is certainly realistic. Beyond that, I'm not sure at this point. So, and if anyone tells you a guaranteed number, don't believe that person.
Is the growth rate slightly misleading? Because as you said, we're relatively small, so those changes are big percentages. So
Absolutely, yes. No doubt about it.
even at 5% today is equal to 2%
Yes.
8 years from now.
Because your absolute number, right, on
Absolute.
15%, a 50% increase will only mean 7,500 people more, right? So as a whole, correct, you're absolutely right. Yeah. Thoughts, questions? Okay,
I was
so,
surprised to see the competitive boxing having such an increase when you're in 5 years.
It's small.
So I'm
Small
thinking
total.
we start a competitive boxing for the 75 plus. That'll bring down that population.
out there.
You know this is being streamed live.
oh boy,
I was watching.
Don't miss the value.
I hope no one's capturing these minutes. All right, well, so we'll go back to the clickers. These are open-ended ones. We'd like to see and we're gonna go in depth with you all individually tomorrow, but just with the clickers, some individual thoughts on, pick your top 3 choices. So on the clicker, choose 1, 2, 3 options in succession for which one of these 3 current facility amenities in Windsor would you like to see more of? These are things we already have, but you feel we don't have enough and you'd like to see more of. What are your top 3 priorities? Okay, is everyone done? All right, so let's take a look. Trails and open space was by far the number 1.
I didn't have a clicker.
Followed by rectangular sports fields, and then a close tie between multi-gen rec center, sports courts, and ball diamonds. Our sample size is only 9 people, so take it with a grain of salt, right? But, nevertheless, some good priorities. New facility amenities.
Can I have a clicker now?
Pay close attention to all the choices.
Shane,
Culinary
No
dining, is this recreation?
Yeah, it's gonna be reflected on his.
Can be, right? Culinary
I was just
options,
competitive
sports courts.
eating. I did, but
when's the youth for
Yeah.
evaluation?
not sooner than.
A lot of it,
In
a lot
the
of rec
multi-gen
centers
center.
are also providing culinary classes, and
Yeah.
people are learning to cook as
Got it.
well and are wanting more dining options.
Why don't you just take the clicker from him there? It might be easier.
If it comes out 70 for Whibbit, we'll know.
I'll just ask him to move to approve.
Okay, everyone done? All right, let's take a look. Ooh, look at that. Culinary dining options are the second highest. I did not see that coming.
So how does that mean 5 people chose it?
Wasn't a million spent.
He's got a few votes on the board.
Oh my
And
God.
free Wi-Fi in all parks. I know we just started with one park.
Why?
I think, you look at Maslow's hierarchy and, clearly, more and more people want free or at least Wi-Fi access as well. So, that's great. Let's look at communication mechanisms. I mean, you're not honestly an objective audience because you're far more in the loop. But imagine putting yourself in the shoes of your constituents or things you hear from them as well. For how do you think, or what are some ways they most prefer that we communicate with them?
Okay,
Top three. Okay. Ooh, so digital it is. Social media and website, and then further behind printed material. It's great. All right, so the flip side of that is barriers. From, again, your constituent standpoint, what do you think prevents them from accessing offerings more often? Top three. You also writing down your choices?
Not my choices.
Oh, the overall, great.
You make your own choice.
So if somebody tends to bring something back, I can remind them.
Better wait another year.
That's like my song, man.
River access it is. To the river.
It works both ways, doesn't it?
All right, let's take a look. Lack of awareness, no time, wait list. You know, we didn't have that, and staff actually recommended putting this in there
Yeah.
because they rightly thought this is a big issue.
Right.
Wow, okay. You know, nationally, lack of awareness is one of the top 3 reasons why people say they don't participate in a statistically valid survey. About 29%, almost 1 out of 3 people don't participate, not because they don't like, or because you don't offer what they want, they just don't know. And some of it, I don't think it's any agency's fault. Frankly, people are just barraged by so much that it's hard, unless people really are looking for it, it's hard to cut through the clutter. Because I had people today tell me, coming to the meeting, to the recreation center, that I wish they did the program guides more than once a year. I'm thinking, really? You don't even know how often they come out? They're literally not outside saying summer. So how much more could we possibly do for them, right? So it's some of that as well. So I take this with a grain of salt because it's not always the staff or the town's fault. A lot of times it's just people themselves that just choose not to.
Right.
So I have 2 overall questions I want to ask you, and we're just going to take very quick notes, but we'll dive deeper into this tomorrow. Firstly, strengths of the system. So from a Parks, Recreation and Culture department, what are things that you feel the department does really well, that you hear from your constituents and that you yourself feel that we should continue or do more of?
I'll say number 1, and it's not because they're here, but staff.
Okay.
You're only as good as your people. You know, I've been in other communities, and our people here, up and down the line, really do a great job of customer service. So that's one strength.
Yes, yes. And I will say that I actually heard that in every group today, to the extent where some people said that 5 in the morning, 5:30
Yeah.
come to work out and people greet
Yeah.
them. They were very complimentary of the staff and the customer service.
Right. I think another, oh, go ahead.
No,
No, please go ahead.
staff, I just agree with him.
Okay.
I think another strength, I think they base the recreational programs and programming based on survey of customer survey. So there's, and my understanding of recreation and cultural events and things is it's trendy.
Mhm.
And what maybe was popular 5 years ago may not be now, so I know it used to, I think you still do some type of customer feedback surveys of where the need is, what the public wants. I
So
think
is it
it's
fair to
really
say they're responsive to the community's
Yeah.
needs?
Yeah, that was more succinct.
And I think the facilities, I think the facilities, not just that we have a nice rec center, but how clean it is, how well
Yeah.
maintained, the equipment's functional,
Yeah.
things like that, but what you were alluding to before, it's starting to get stressed. Where people are saying, you know, I love it, but it's too crowded in the morning, even at 5:30 or.
Yes, yes. So on the strength side, is it fair to say just well-maintained, clean
Yeah,
facilities?
nice facilities, well maintained,
Okay.
clean, yeah.
Okay.
I think
Yes,
the variety,
I was gonna say
Yeah,
diversification.
so much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
so much for people to choose from.
yeah, well, I have to tell you that for a town your size, I don't know
It's
any
amazing.
place that has as much as you provide. And I, again, see this over the country, right? Not only as much, but also the quality of what you provide. Right? So it's great.
I
What
think
other strengths?
Another strength is support of the town board. That is.
Yeah.
That is, no, that is, that is.
nothing,
the community.
He's not even running for reelection.
I just said let's vote.
Right, anything
I'm not
else?
saying
Okay, so, yes,
Well, it goes to staff again, but they all are very passionate about what they do and extremely organized.
Sure.
So when they do put on an event, it's well-run, well-thought-out, well-structured.
yeah,
It's-
yeah.
It helps a lot.
I would thank the residents of Windsor because it's due to the funding that we can actually
Yes.
do everything that
Exactly.
we can do.
We have a
So,
community that wants these.
you can have a great staff, but if you don't have the
Right.
funding to do it, then
Right.
you're not gonna be able to.
Well, I remember last year we had a band come for the first time and they're up there and they go, wow, look at this, the lake, all the people that had shown up, they were kinda, they thought they were coming to do a little concert in the park and it was bigger and better than they thought it would be.
Yeah. So I'm gonna talk to each one of you in depth about opportunities tomorrow, but what I want is one question. I'd like to each one of you, starting from you here, going around and telling me your number one priority. If you were to say, hey, Neelay, from the strategic plan and needs assessment, here's the one outcome, very specific or very broad, but that one outcome you'd like for us to achieve from this plan, what would that be for you?
One outcome from
The strategic plan and the needs assessment, yes.
Okay.
Not our priority.
Not a priority within it, okay.
The priorities I'll get to tomorrow when we meet, but this is more of an outcome of the plan. It could be aligned with your priority. If you really want to have a playground in the middle of the water as your number one priority, then
See, even he thinks it's funny.
Won't go away.
Well, I would hope we would end up with something like we did with our comp plan, which is a guiding document
Right.
that guides us, and again, not everything that we're gonna accomplish in 1 year's time, but a futuristic plan that we know that we're following,
Okay.
and to use as our guide,
Kind of like our capital improvement plan for parks and recreation,
yeah.
like a 5 or 10 year.
Like our comp plan.
Yeah.
We
how we're gonna
did.
achieve it.
Okay, great, thank you.
I would like to see how we're gonna pay for it,
What did he say?
how to pay for these things. Even if it laid out over time, I think we need to have a plan in place, whether it's mill levy or sales tax or no change, just existing
When you
funds.
say it, you mean both development and O&M as well, right? So capital replacement,
Yes.
operations, maintenance,
Yes,
okay,
absolutely.
okay.
Maybe this is too specific, but I'd like to see us retain the open space, or a lot of the open space we have already,
Yeah.
especially between communities.
Yes.
Okay, so keep the balance between active and passive open spaces?
Yes.
Right, okay.
I don't know that I can add anything new. I would concur with a couple of my other board members.
Okay,
The funding and long-term vision, you have to lay it out so that the people of Windsor know where we're heading.
okay, great.
That's me. You know, I agree too with having that guiding document, as Christie pointed out. And this is great, I think, to get the will of the people, but with the funding and everything else, something that's realistic. Sometimes we do this stuff and we have this pie in the sky, build all these roads, do all these things, but it's just not achievable with the funding. So I want a realistic plan to kind of meet the residents' wants and needs.
Yeah, great.
Same thing, I want a flexible plan for the next decade with a financial model.
Okay,
Yeah, a funding mechanism that's sustainable and maybe even self-sufficient.
okay. So a guiding document, a roadmap that outlines funding and revenue strategies or is financially sustainable, meets the community's vision and want for the future in a realistic way, and balances active and passive recreation. Is that a good summary?
Yes.
It's a big enough target. to
Write
hit.
that down.
Sounds like you've heard that before.
By next Monday.
By next Monday? We're just gonna pull a few one-liners and we'll be good. Thank you. So, we promise we'll end before 7, so thank you very much for the time and the opportunity, and we look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Right.
Thank you.
What did you do at Disney?
Sports marketing. And the ESPN wide loading sports. It used to be Disney's Monday Night Sports. It was wonderful. It was really wonderful.
We need to split up.
Edited boxing.
You're good, no?
Okay, we'll look here, look there.
Well, I see that on
Isn't it a little misleading? I mean, it had a huge growth, but the absolute number was tiny. Like, oh wow. Oh, maybe we should build a box.
Yeah. I think
I like the
that's what it
clickers,
is.
please.
Good, good to see you.
Yep.